Hello, my name is David Havlick, and I'm a Senior Sustainability Manager in the Harvard University Office for Sustainability. And I co-organized this session with Aurora and Bruni from Epfl, who you'll be hearing from in a moment. We are so happy to welcome you to one of the first sessions at an ISCN conference devoted solely to sustainable food. As you may already know, the food industry has a huge impact on climate change, air and water pollution, land use, biodiversity loss, and many of the other huge environmental challenges of our time. According to the latest IPCC report on climate change and land, 25 to 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions are attributable to the food system. And universities are concerned about this climate issue since thousands of meals are purchased in their dining facilities on a daily basis. They are also facing a growing demand for more sustainable food options from their communities, which of course makes some of this work a little bit easier because the demand is going up. And we need bold action in this area. In 2019, the Eat Lancet report on food, planet, and health was released. It included the work of hundreds of scientists, thousands of studies, and millions of data points, and culminated in a first of its kind report that offered a vision for a sustainable food system based both on sustainability science and nutrition science. And that report said, quote, "The transformation to healthy diets by 2050 will require substantial dietary shifts. Global consumption of fruits and vegetables, nuts, and legumes will have to double, and consumption of foods such as red meat and sugar will have to be reduced by more than 50%. It went on to say, "A diet rich in plant-based foods and with fewer animal-sourced foods confers both improved health and environmental benefits," end quote. Colleges and universities around the world are increasingly trying to measure the climate impact of their food purchases and trying to reduce that impact through innovation and behavior change, while keeping a focus on delicious, nutritious food that nourishes their community. We're often told that climate change is a challenge that requires collective action, which means we as individuals definitely have a responsibility to act. But large institutions like colleges and universities also have an outsized responsibility to act too, not just individuals. On our campuses, we can pilot new strategies, conduct research, share lessons learned as we're doing today, driving changes in the market, and increase demand for healthier and more sustainable food. Today, you'll be hearing from 4 institutions who are doing exciting work in this area: Epfl, Harvard University, University of Lausanne, and University of North Texas. These institutions are all doing innovative work, setting holistic visions around sustainable food, tracking climate impact over time, and of course, reducing it, promoting plant-forward menus, and using their campuses as a test bed for innovation that we can all learn from. These are just a few examples of the many campuses around the world doing amazing work in this area. We'll have time after the presentations for your questions to the presenters, and also for you to share some of the innovations happening on your campuses related to sustainable food.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aurora Nembrini, and I'm a Sustainability Manager at the Sustainability Office of Epfl. And I'm very pleased today to present the Epfl food strategy and how we have gradually integrated sustainability into our campus restaurants, starting with isolated initiatives and leading to the current strategy. So Epfl is one of the 2 Swiss Institutes of Technology. We are based in Lausanne, Switzerland. We currently have 11,500 students and 6,000 staff. Regarding food, we have 32 catering points, including 5 food trucks, and on average, in a normal period, 6,700 menus are sold per day. The integration of sustainability in our catering has been a gradual process. Our role as a sustainability unit has evolved gradually. Initially, we implemented isolated initiatives to stimulate awareness and gradual integration of sustainability. And with the arrival of a new head of catering In 2019, sustainability was integrated in a more systematic way. Our role has evolved into a more support function to gradually integrate sustainability at a strategic level in our climate plan. Now, a few examples of these initiatives that we implemented. In terms of institutional initiatives, we have set up first meat-free days in 2014. We observed rather strong resistance, although there were only 4 per year. And we also implemented mandatory reusable dishes for takeaway food in 2017, which was a great success and resulted in a 40% reduction in waste. We also supported the many initiatives that came out of the community. Most of them were led by students, and some of them became institutionalized, like the weekly market. We also developed an urban farming project together with the University of Lausanne. The land and the farm belonged to the campuses, and they had been given to a collective working in agroecology. It's really an opportunity to raise awareness of the university community on major food issues. For instance, some of the vegetables from the farm have already been used in our cafeteria this spring. In 2018, I set up a huge awareness campaign called Act for Change Food, and the objectives was really to raise community awareness about the environmental impact of food, while at the same time giving the opportunity to experience more sustainable food. For example, we organized vegetarian cooking workshops, and students organized vegan tastings to show that sustainable food can be also tasty and delicious. And 10% of the community participated in this campaign. During the same period, we published the first official reporting of the CO2 impact of food, and it showed that food generates about 20% of Epfl CO2 emissions, and that 90% of the menus sold on campus include meat and fish. The CO2 balance of food was a rough evaluation based on the number of vegetarian and non-vegetarian menus sold on campus restaurants. It was a period of the climate strikes. We observed a growing awareness of the community, especially students, and an increase in their demands. For example, we received a petition signed by 2,000 community members asking for more vegan dishes. And all these elements, the awareness campaign, the reporting on food, and the influence of the community led progressively our management to become more and more aware of the issues, environmental issues related to food, and led them to hire a new catering manager with strong objectives regarding sustainability. And with the arrival of Bruno Rossignol, the new catering manager, our role has evolved into a more supportive one. Responsibility for integrating sustainability is now gradually being transferred to the new catering manager. The food strategy of Bruno Rossignol, whose motto is "Responsible Eating Our Mission," is based on 6 strategic axes. So it's to provide a positive culinary experience based on 4 pillars: provide local, fresh, healthy, sustainable, while at the same time, and it is very important, affordable food, especially for the students. Strengthen partnerships with restaurants by providing support and training, such as vegetarian cooking workshops. Integrate sustainability. That means considering the CO2 impact, the impact of transport and waste. And also monitor the complete life cycle food system from supply to waste. Control supplies in terms of origin, season, percentage of organic food, etc. And finally, raise awareness and communicate about it. I will focus in this presentation on the CO2 impact and how to measure it throughout the food system. As you may know, 25 to 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions are generated by the food system, and most of this impact, more than 80%, is generated by the consumption of meat, eggs, and dairy products. And one of the solutions with the highest potential to reduce CO2 emissions is the diet change, and we are focusing on this solution. We will also focus on food waste, as emissions from food that is never eaten accounts for 6% of total emissions. And this is reflected in the objectives set in our climate plan. The first objective is to reduce meat consumption on campus, and the third one is to reduce food waste. Regarding the first objective, the measures consist primarily of making vegetarian and vegan cuisine attractive and nutritious, but also of banning certain meat products. For example, one of the measures is to replace red meat with more sustainable proteins. And we have this ambitious goal that 80% of the food sold on campus will be vegetarian by 2030, compared to 15% today. This should allow us to reduce our impact related to food by 40%. Here are the measures that have already been implemented last year by Bruno Rossignol. From September 2020, 50% of the menu offer is vegetarian. Products coming from greenhouses heated with fossil fuels are banned. We offered vegetarian and vegan training for caterers, and we started implementing the monitoring for all restaurants in terms of purchases and waste analysis. And since beginning of this January, we have 1 veggie day per week, and the first 100% vegetarian restaurant will open soon. So the environmental impact of the Epifo food system is based on the evaluation of purchases at one end and food waste at the other. To measure the impact of food purchases, we use an indicator which is developed by the Swiss startup Belong, and the evaluation of the restaurant environmental performance is based on purchases using 5 criteria: origin, season, method of production, climate impact, and product transformation. All the food purchases of our restaurants are evaluated on a scale from A to E. At the other end, to evaluate food waste, we use the system of another Swiss startup called Kitro. And with a scale connected to a camera, Kitro photographs, identifies, and records every discarded food item, including its weight. It identifies 3 types of sources: preparation, overproduction, and plate. And of course, the quality of the offer in terms of nutrition and taste is a very important criteria of the strategy. And in order to evaluate and optimize the nutrition quality of all that is consumed on our point of sale, we use the NutriMenu tool, also developed by the Swiss company. This tool rates the nutritional quality of each menu on a scale from A to E, according to the Swiss nutritional recommendation. So all the food purchases of our restaurants are evaluated on a scale from A to E, and we obtain for each restaurant the distribution of products purchased in each category. Based on this diagnosis, Belong provides guides to chefs to improve their purchases based on season, origin, or labels. The results for the whole campus show that meat, eggs, and dairy products represent 24% of purchases, but 58% of the CO2 impacts. And all food purchases represent an impact of 6 kilos CO2 per kilo of food purchased. And for comparison, the University of Cambridge has an impact that is almost half that for an almost equivalent amount of food purchased. This very good result is partly due to the fact that this university has completely eliminated meat from ruminants, that means beef and lamb, since 2016. Other indicators related to the Belong indicator are the product origin. For instance, we have 48% of Swiss products, while our objective is 70%. Other indicators are the percentage of organic food and percentage of non-endangered species in palm oil. Now, regarding waste, the KITRO tool reports show that 60 to 80% of food waste is edible. And the sources of waste can differ greatly among restaurants. In some cases, it is in the customer's plate that there is the most waste, while in others, it is rather the overproduction. This information helps guide action and communication with the caterers. The data collected allows us to evaluate the CO2 impact related to food. And as you can see, even during the COVID period, the emission reduction target set by the Swiss government is not reached. Regarding waste, another objective of the climate plan is to get rid of all disposable packaging. The strategy consists in first, extend the obligation to use reusable dishes for takeaway food, which is already in place since 2017, and to extend it to beverage containers and cutlery as of May. The second is to replace progressively individual bottles by beverage distributors. And third, from September 2021, we are developing a pilot project which consists in offering reusable dishes for rent for campus events, including washing and logistics. And I can't resist presenting our latest pilot project, the development of a vending machine, offering only local, healthy, and sustainable products. The products are 80% locally sourced and made by local artisans. It's a partnership between Epfl, Prometer, which is an association defending the interests of local farmers, Dahlmeier, which is a manufacturer of vending machines, and the local administration. The pilot started in January, and it's a huge success, as more than 30 vending machines will soon be deployed in schools, other institutions, and companies. So this was a short overview of what is developed at Epfl regarding food and sustainability. And I will be very pleased to answer your question later. Thank you for your attention.
Hello again, this is David Havlick from the Harvard Office for Sustainability. And today I'll be talking to you about Harvard's experience of creating sustainable and healthful food standards and signing on to the Cool Food Pledge, and how that work fits into our larger sustainable food strategy and how it's motivated our food service partners and our community at large. Here at Harvard, we're leveraging our purchasing power, access to knowledge, strategic partnerships, and more, and thinking organization-wide about how we can best contribute to creating a more sustainable food system. And of course, today I'll be representing lots of work that's not my own, but that represents the diversity of innovators and partnerships here at Harvard, where lots of great work is being done. So just to give you a little bit of context of where we're at Harvard. So we have a university-wide sustainability plan since 2014, which was very holistic in nature and went beyond climate and environment and really addressed climate equity and health. And we also have fossil fuel energy goals to be fossil fuel free by 2050 and fossil fuel neutral by 2026. We also met our first climate goal in 2016 of reducing net reduction of 30% in greenhouse gas emissions. And currently we're at work to create a second generation sustainability plan, which we hope to be releasing by the end of the year. And at Harvard, we really think of ourselves as a great place to test new strategies and innovations and technologies. Because one of the reasons for that is we're decentrally managed. So decisions do not happen from the center. Instead, each of our different schools, law school, the business school, the medical school, et cetera, the college, all operate relatively independently from one another, which of course sometimes makes our work pretty challenging. But it also provides this great opportunity for piloting things, for matching things with the culture of a very specific school, et cetera. We operate 650 plus buildings, over 25 plus million square feet. And more importantly for our discussion today, we serve 10 plus million meals a year on our campus. And those meals are served by our internal Harvard University dining services, as you'll see in green on this map, but also by other food vendors that we have on our campus. Because as I said, each school makes its own decisions and operates pretty independently. So some schools hire Harvard University dining services to manage their dining halls and cafeterias and catering. And some other schools choose to go with a different company to manage that. And so as you can see in blue, for instance, at 3 of our schools, a company called Restaurant Associates manages their retail cafeterias. And Restaurant Associates, by the way, is owned by Compass Group, which is a huge food company that serves 10 plus million meals a day. And so what's kind of exciting is the things we do to define sustainable food on our campus can then have an influence on Restaurant Associates, which then can have influence on a huge company that has global impact. But because we had these multiple food vendors on campus, we needed one common definition of sustainable food and a set of priorities to set them on a path that was really aligned. And so we wanted to create sustainable and healthful food standards. And so we brought together a multidisciplinary faculty food standards committee, as you can see here. It was co-chaired by Walter Willett, who was the chair of the nutrition department at the School of Public Health at Harvard for 25 plus years. And Ari Bernstein, who is a professor of environmental health at the School of Public Health and also a pediatrician himself. We also included Emily Broadleib, who runs the Food Law Policy Clinic at the Harvard Law School, as well as various faculty from a variety of disciplines. We also got lots of input from our Council of Student Sustainability Leaders, and of course, the real experts here, the food service vendors on our campus. And so as we do all of our work, we wanted to ground these food standards in the latest science. For that, we looked at various reports, but primarily at the Eat-Lancet Commission on Food, Planet, and Health, which, by the way, one of our co-chairs, Walter Willett, helped lead, which came out right around when we were releasing our food standards. And in that report, it said food is the single strongest lever to optimize health, human health, and environmental sustainability on Earth. So of course, you know, our university needed to have a big focus on food. We also built on an already existing relationship between the Culinary Institute of America and Harvard School of Public Health called Menus of Change, which many of our food vendors were already a part of, as well as huge food companies around the United States. And these Menus of Change principles were also grounded in science. And we're really pushing food vendors to move in a plant-forward direction. As you could see things on this chart, like serve less red meat less often, use poultry and eggs in moderation, things like that. And the mission of our food standards were to provide, of course, a more healthful and sustainable food supply to our community, to align these multiple food vendors around a common shared vision for sustainable food, to drive changes in the marketplace through sending signals, et cetera, quantifying our environmental and health impacts, as I'll talk about a little bit later, and enhancing food literacy among the Harvard community and beyond. And so in the end, our food standards really centered on these 6 categories. So climate and ecosystems, consumer well-being, which of course has to do with things like nutrition, reduction of wasted food, because as many of you know, if food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. So we have a huge focus on reduction of wasted food, welfare of animals, education and food literacy, and then well-being of workers and communities throughout the value chain of the food we're purchasing and eating on campus. And on our website, you can find our full food standards and more specifics in each of those 6 categories. But today I'll be focusing mainly on the climate and ecosystems category. And in this category, we were asking our food vendors to reduce the impact of climate change by increasing proportion of foods that have smaller emissions footprints and are less resource intensive. So of course, increasing things like whole grains, legumes, and nuts, and decreasing things like red meat and dairy. Now, when we first were socializing these food standards with our food vendors, there were conflicting conversion factors from greenhouse gas emissions and no clear set of data or calculators that we could use to measure climate impact. A lot of our food vendors were telling us that it would be difficult to report data on the categories of food that they're purchasing because of the way they order the food. There was going to be no way we could compare ourselves to other institutions. And there was also no comprehensive guide to research-informed behavioral nudges that our food vendors could use to help move in this right direction. Because a lot of them said, well, we can't just force people to eat certain things. And our answer to them was, well, nudge them in a certain direction. And, so they wanted some sort of guide to help them. And so right around when we were launching our food standards, we found out about the Cool Food Pledge. And this actually helped allay kind of all of the frustrations that I just named in a variety of ways. So we signed the Cool Food Pledge in September 2019. What was exciting is now we did have a great calculator to measure the greenhouse gas emissions associated with our food, because our faculty agreed with the underlying data that the Cool Food Pledge was using in their calculator. Also, our executive vice president signed this pledge on behalf of Harvard, representing all of our food vendors. So now all of a sudden our food vendors really needed to report how much red meat, how much dairy, how much poultry they were purchasing. Thirdly, now we were going to be able to compare ourselves to other big, huge, other universities, cities, and other organizations that were all other signatories of the Cool Food Pledge. And fourthly, the Cool Food Pledge was in the midst of, and now has finished, creating a very useful toolkit on behavioral nudges that could help our food vendors nudge their customers toward more sustainable food. So at this point, really, the Cool Food Pledge has become a cornerstone of our food policy. And it's something that's not really that controversial on campus. In fact, it's pretty motivating. And it shows that we can all do something to reduce our institution's greenhouse gas emissions. And in a university setting, that also means our students are motivated to work on projects and research related to that Cool Food Pledge. It also allowed moments like this for our executive vice president, Katie Lapp, who again signed on behalf of Harvard to the Cool Food Pledge. In her monthly newsletter, she really called that out and said that we all have a role to play, and really pointed people to the fact that Harvard signed the Cool Food Pledge. So it really elevated the importance of that on our campus. We've already started to see some data. Of course, as you can see, 2020 is going to be an outlier probably for many of our campuses. And this is just data from Harvard University Dining Services, although we have reporting from our other major vendors. But you could start to see, at least visually, where we're headed for 2030 and where we hope to go. And charts like this, by the way, and data visualization like this has also really helped empower our food vendors to think strategically. So for instance, Harvard University Dining Services worked with a student data group to start modeling, taking their data from the baseline of 2018 and modeling things like what would happen, would we get to our goal by 2030 if we reduced red meat by 50%, let's say? The answer was no. So it helped them realize that they're really going to have to think creatively outside the box. And even already, just after doing that modeling, they started to think, oh, well, maybe we need to make changes to dairy. Maybe we should be offering more oat milk and really nudging people toward that, et cetera. And it's really, I've seen them working and thinking way more creatively because they have a really clear goal, really clear data, and really can start modeling what different actions will lead to. And no surprise, but again, this maybe to many of us in this session, but these types of data visualizations are really helpful to see where to spend the time for innovation. So on the left, you could see the purchases, the weight of the plant-based foods are in blue and the animal-based foods are in orange. And on the right, you could see the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from each of those. And as you can see, even though maybe in terms of weight, we're not buying a lot of animal products, as you can see on the right, the impacts of that small amount of animal products has enormous impacts on climate. And data visualizations like this are really helping motivate our food vendors, but also customers as well. And as I mentioned, this is that playbook that the Cool Food Pledge created that's research informed guidance on nudges you could do in the cafeteria. And a lot of our food vendors now are using this guide to set annual plans for themselves, renaming things in their menu, putting plant-based foods first in the line, so people fill up their plates with plants before they have an opportunity to fill it with animal products. Using exciting words to describe food rather than, I have to say, saying a dish is climate friendly isn't really that appetizing, even if it maybe triggers, the part of you that wants to do good for the planet. But sometimes when you're hungry, you just want something delicious. And so, there's lots of advice in this guide for how to name dishes to make them seem enticing and exciting to customers. Also, Harvard University Dining Services teamed up with the Humane Society of the United States for a plant-based chef training. They had done this a decade before, but this time more recently, they trained their line cooks as well. And this training is really important because cooking with plant-based foods sometimes requires different processes and things like that. Harvard Dining Services also teamed up with a postdoctoral research fellow at the School of Public Health to create labeling in their cafeteria on the climate impacts of food. Restaurant Associates, which is the company who manages the dining hall at the business school, had a recipe contest for plant-forward menu items, and then offered that as part of in their cafeteria. And then also they have now a menus of change area where they have plant-forward foods. People know where to go in the cafeteria to get really exciting plant-based foods. And then also we have some amazing partners at Farm Forward and Default Veg that have helped us source higher welfare animal products, but also exciting plant-based products. And then the default veg concept, this concept of making the default plant-based, and then people can opt in and add meat to their dish, or at an event saying that it'll be a plant-based meal, and you can request if you want meat at it, rather than the other way around, has really made a big difference. Again, all of this has motivated staff, students, and faculty to work together on things like a sustainable meeting and event guide on the left, and also a guide to plant-based diets at Harvard on the right, which was developed by an undergraduate student. And then this is hot off the presses just yesterday in the Harvard Gazette. We have a new head of Harvard University Dining Services, actually the first female in this position ever. And Smitha Hanif used her opportunity in the Harvard Gazette to lay out her priorities in terms of strategic priorities for the direction of Harvard Dining Services. And as you can see here in the title of the article, she called out sustainability as a main strategic goal. And this all is just evidence that all of the food standards, the Whole Food Pledge, the increasing demand for this really has put sustainability on the map. And it's so exciting to work with people like Smitha and all of our food service partners at Harvard to innovate and really make an impact. And so here's just some links where you can find more information about our food strategy. And I'm looking forward to questions and some of your stories about things happening on your campuses in the Q&A portion.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Delphine Dussault, and I work since almost 10 years now to implement a sustainable policy at Rectorate of University of Lausanne. My chief, the vice rector in charge of sustainability and campus management, is also responsible for catering issues on the campus. So it was for us always a question to bond these two topics together. But before getting to the heart of this presentation, I would like to briefly introduce you to the University of Lausanne and its food and catering context. So, the University of Lausanne is a research institution composed of 7 faculties, where about 3,600 staff and 17 students are working and studying. UNIL is focused on several academic disciplines, especially medicine, life sciences, geosciences and environment, business, humanities, and social sciences. In UNIL, we have a very particular configuration for our catering facilities inherited from an historical concept. Indeed, when UNIL moved from the city center to this campus area in the late 70s, the architect responsible for the campus development, from which you can see a drawing on the screen, imagined a central district where all the services for the student were grouped together, example given as like the library and the cafeterias. So a huge production kitchen was therefore imagined to supply a large central cafeteria and several other smaller ones on the campus. With the growth of the campus, other cafeterias were created, with the last one built in 2019 in green on the image. We have at UNIL for the moment only 4 enterprises responsible for the cafeteria, and they also provide catering services when the community needs it. It's also important to say that before 2015, it was the authorities of the Canton de Vaud who signed the restoration contracts for our campus. It was then not easy for us, the campus managers, to discuss with the cafeteria managers in order to improve their sustainability, because it was only based on the goodwill, on their goodwill. So it was a very slow process. But in 2015, as soon as we got the control of the contract back, we were fully able to apply all the reflection we have made about what was our responsibility as mandate giver to make the food on the campus more sustainable. So I displayed to you this very funny image, maybe coming from another time when food was a simple service that UNIL had to provide to its community to fill hungry bellies. But nowadays, it's more complicated because food-related behaviors and diets carry strong cultural, environmental, and ethical values, which the institution must try to reflect upon. So, of course, to be fully aligned with our sustainable policy, one of our first action was to establish criteria in our food and catering contracts. In 2000, from 2018 to 2019, we work with our sustainability Commission and the Food Commission to establish a framework for sustainable and healthy food on the campus. This framework contains sustainable and nutritional goals that we manage to upgrade regularly. Of course, practice and suppliers' practice are moving quite fast in this topic those days, and we need that this document is as upgradable as possible to be representative of what we can do the best and what restaurant can do the best in terms of sustainability. So since 2019, this framework is contractual for all the new and updated food and catering contracts on the campus. Another responsibility that we wanted to materialize on the campus was about food production. We began with vegetable gardens run by students. We have now 2 of them having an area of 500 square meters. And in 2019, in partnership with Epfl, we have entrusted the management of our agricultural land to a collective of farmers who practice a concept of crop livestock farming and agroforestry. Having them and having such a sustainable agricultural model on the campus, and also organizing activities between the farmers and the community will allow our students to be in contact with those sustainable models and to ask themselves questions about how we eat and how we produce food nowadays. So since we took this right back the responsibility to choose the food we offer to our community, we have a responsibility to make our catering offers as sustainable as possible. Therefore, we are setting ambitious goals, and it is often believed that these goals are difficult to achieve for smaller catering companies. Those companies, despite a willingness to change their habits, often lack resources to modify their practices. Although at UNIL, we have a different experiences from this question, from this belief. I display here on the screen the last annual environmental evaluation that we do on our 2 main restaurateurs. One is a familial enterprise. The other one is a catering group active in Europe. And despite their difference of size, we can see that their environmental grades in this evaluation are quite similar. So we were wondering how we can design our catering tenders to allow all types of caterer to take part, to have the chance to take this market and to get the chance to do the turn towards offering more sustainable food. And I would ask today that this is an important question and important issues considering the COVID situation. Because as we know, restaurant sector particularly suffers from this pandemic, and especially the smaller company in the food sectors, and that's why it was also very important for us to try to take everybody in this call of tender. So I give the example here of the restoration tender for the Vortex. We were looking for a manager for the 2 restaurant spaces in this new building. We chose to finance the kitchen equipment in order to reduce the restaurateur initial investment, which amounted to nearly 500,000 Swiss francs. And we choose to apply this principle to install a slightly higher rent in order to pay in order that the restaurateur can pay us back this investment through his rent once the mandate was won. The question of how we would enforce and control our sustainability goals that we have in our framework was also a source of much thought. So we have chosen to establish a dialogue with the restaurant owners, and with our help, he should develop his own plan to achieve our objectives. A period of 3 years is given to him to achieve these goals. Otherwise, UNIL will take the right to take him back the automatic renewal, or we will cancel its contract. We were able to choose the restaurant owner in advance so that he could help us to finalize the kitchen equipment according to the concept that he has created for those two restaurant spaces. And we can say that by working with him, we found a restaurateur, but we gained also a real partner in this building and for those two restaurant places. So at the end of the call of tender, we got 4 candidates, 2 large, 1 medium, and 1 independent. So the diversity we were looking for was fully achieved. So in conclusion, I would say that this call for tender was for us a success, and it strengthened our position to try to be as inclusive as possible in our call of tender. By the time this presentation will be made, we will already launch our second big call of tender, where the manager of 90% of our cafeteria will be renewed. So we will follow the same principle to be as inclusive as possible, and we will see if we will be successful again in that diversity that we are looking for. Finally, I will end this presentation by coming back to my initial question: who is responsible of sustainable food on the campus? So we talk in this presentation a lot of 2 important players, the institution and the restaurant operators. But what about our community? Maybe one of our tasks is also to make our community realize that they have a role to play to improve the sustainability of the food offer on the campus.
Hi, I'm Derek Ripp, Senior Director at University of North Texas Dining Services. UNT is a public service university with over 40,000 students. UNT is a self-operated dining services, which means that we are part of the university. Currently, dining services is part of the Division of Student Affairs. In dining services here on campus, we, in a pre-COVID time, do roughly 25,000 transactions a day. And that's comprised of our 5 residential dining halls and our 20+ retail operations. We also oversee catering on campus, and we have our own internal bake shop as well, where we do all of our breads, pizza doughs, croissants, everything from scratch on campus, which is a very unique thing compared to a lot of schools around campus. UNT dining team is comprised of about 170 full-time staff, but we hire about 1,300 part-time students to really make the magic happen. As an example, the bake shop where we're making all those items from scratch, we only have 8 full-time staff. The rest of the magic happens with students on hand who are trained to utilize all the equipment, to our mixers that can do 440-pound batches of dough, right on through. So it's our operation is definitely run with a big part of student input on campus. For meal plans on campus too, we have 5,800 students are on a required meal plan, but we also have about 6,500 students and faculty and staff that sign up for it voluntarily. So we have a really good participation rate. And I think a big part of that is our commitment to food on campus, making sure that we're not serving any franken foods, stuff is from scratch, as much as possible, we make it on campus with that. Mean Greens has actually been a big part of that. So Mean Greens started 10 years ago. We're actually in the plans of doing a 10-year celebration this upcoming fall semester. But Mean Greens was transitioned from Maple Dining Hall into Mean Greens, which was the country's first all-place dining facility. The push for this really came from students on campus, and they're, as back then, there was a vocal, smaller group, but a vocal part of it that started really pushing the administration back then and being able to provide more plant-based items, which then led to the creation of Mean Greens. What took me by surprise, especially as a transplant and someone new to Texas, was how well it took off. Especially here, everyone, I was under the misconception as well of, oh, it's Texas, everyone's eating barbecue and brisket and beef and cattle, and it was pretty amazing because of how well this took off. And I think the big part of it has always been the commitment to just doing good food. And I think, especially with plant-based, if you do it right, you're using good natural ingredients, it can come off really, really, really well and be very popular. Mean Greens is one of the 5 residential dining halls. In our residential plan, students can swipe in as many times as they want. So it's an unlimited plan. They can eat as much as they want when they're inside. We don't have a to-go program. Mean Greens is opened 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we're open breakfast, lunch, dinner, and except for dinner on Friday, we actually close a little bit down. There's a lot of students on campus that take off for the weekend, so we see counts really go down on during that point. On a typical day pre-COVID, Mean Greens was doing just over 1,500 covers a day, and really we were actually breaking capacity in the sense of we would have a long line just getting in the building. Currently, the building has 205 seats in a pre-COVID setup. Obviously, we've reduced that to allow social distancing. And really the long-term plan too is to actually take Mean Greens, which has been so successful, and move it into a larger space on campus so we can enable to get more students in there. The magic of Mean Greens really happens with a small group. We've got 3 managers, 4 full-time staff, and about 50 to 60 students that make it all happen. And I know Chef Matt's going to go more into the menus of items that we have on there, but to the point too, and I think this going back to UNT's commitment to doing real food, stuff like seitan, we don't purchase it, we make it. Chef Chris, who is the current general manager at Mean Greens, makes his own tempeh. He's worked on dishes like smoked watermelon, different things like that have really helped elevate the food that's available at Mean Greens. So after it was started 10 years ago, in about 2016, we added a freight farm to Mean Greens. So Chef Chris was brought on board at the same time, and he and a couple of part-time students managed the freight farm, where we're able to grow a lot of our own leafy greens and herbs. As an example, currently right now we have growing in there is some bright light Swiss chard, wasabi arugula, some Santo cilantro, some stevia that you use for a sweetener, little gem leaf lettuce, ruby sky leaf lettuce, Paris Island romaine, and we've also got a slew of basils that are growing because they hold so well. Amethyst, Genovese, lime, lemon, sweet Thai, and some scarlet kale as well. So all that comes out of there. The great thing with the freight farm too is anything that Mean Greens can't use on campus, we actually ship to other units on campus with that. So that's a general rundown of Mean Greens and UNT, and I'm going to pass it on over to Chef Matt. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matthew Ward. I'm the Executive Chef of Residential Dining here at the University of North Texas. Been in my current role for a little over a year now, but prior to that, I spent 4+ years as the Chef General Manager of Mean Greens Cafe. In that time, I was able to experience the evolution of plant-based dining here on campus. I've seen its popularity increase each school year, not just here at Mean Greens, but campus-wide. The majority of that has to do with the popularity of Mean Greens and a push for more plant-based options from the student body. Today, you can walk into any of our dining halls and be able to get a plant-based meal from the many selections on our seasonal menus. The same can be said for other outlets on campus as well. A lot of our success is a commitment from dining services leadership to bring in some great culinarians that are passionate about what they do. And we've made a commitment to keep evolving and experimenting to come up with new and fresh ideas to satisfy and keep our patrons engaged. This is evident at Mean Greens Cafe, where the team makes their own seitan, tempeh, Burmese tofu on a weekly basis. Other items that have been developed are a plant-based coconut yogurt, smoked watermelon ham, vegan-style cheeses such as fresh mozzarella and a tofu ricotta, and tofu fried chicken. One of the more popular dishes that demonstrates the amount of collaboration between departments and dining services is the plant-based Eggs Benedict served at Mean Greens. House-made sourdough English muffins from Clark Bakery are paired with Chef Chris's Black Forest ham seitan. A spinach and onion ragu complements the seitan, and then it's topped with a plant-based hollandaise made with aquafaba. Collaboration with Chef Bill Hunter and the Clark Bakery team has been instrumental in pushing more plant-based items here on campus. Some of their plant-based items include dairy-free ice cream, varieties of Clark Bakery breads, breakfast pastries such as croissants, danishes, and kolaches, and the house-made pizza dough. Clark Bakery adds a 7-year-old sourdough starter in many of their items that are produced in-house. Our efforts don't go unnoticed. The team at Mean Greens were awarded a gold medal for their tomato mushroom curry recipe from the NAPEP's organization for the best vegan recipe for 2020. This dish is a fan favorite and is the most requested dish at Mean. Chef Chris Williams, Chef General Manager at Mean Greens, was runner-up in the Star Chef's watermelon recipe contest last year for his smoked watermelon slider recipe. We've had an increase in plant-based awareness on campus and have worked with other departments to put on more campus-wide plant-centric special events. One such event was our all-plant-based Earth Day celebration back in 2019, EarthFest. The entire menu was plant-based, and it was a crowd-favorite event for that year. Our participation in the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative has helped us continue the plan of educating our student population of the benefits of healthy eating. The MCURC is a network of institutions of higher learning that are accelerating efforts to move people towards healthier, more sustainable, and delicious foods using evidence-based research, education, and innovation. Founded in 2014 through a partnership between the CIA and Stanford University, at present day, the collaborative includes 69 member institutions and over 270 members. The collaborative is responsible for research and developing initiatives that universities and institutions of higher learning can use to mold students' beliefs, behaviors, and decisions when it comes to the entire food system. Research projects include those that gauge students' food choices, the institution's impact on the environment by analyzing protein purchases, and those impacts on the carbon footprint. The collaborative uses college dining halls as laboratories for research and to gather valuable information through research projects that institutions conduct on their own campuses. The collaborative believes that these students will become tomorrow's parents, entrepreneurs, and leaders, impacting the entire food system with their beliefs, behaviors, and decisions. Plant-based options are Mean Green inspired in all of our dining halls and all of our retail operations. Eagle Landing, our new freestanding dining facility with 7 different concepts, boasts a plant-based station named Super Lean, where we just offer plant-based entrees and feature hydroponic greens from Mean Green Acres, the farm located behind Mean Greens Cafe. Mean Greens has outgrown its current location, and we are working on plans on taking over a larger space, expanding the seating capacity, and hoping to offer a more enjoyable plant-based dining experience in the future. I hope you've enjoyed an inside glimpse of UNT dining services and what we do to promote plant-based dining experience on a daily